All right, here we go, episode 6 of our Middara series, where we're going to be painting Nightingale Arsen. And for you that voted on the poll, this was the most voted for this week to appear. And I said Thursday on the poll. It was not Thursday, it was Friday, and that's what I meant. Maybe I was drinking a lot. I don't know. Maybe Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if I'll have time. Anyways, if this is your first time at the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, hit that little bell button. We're going to be doing the rest of Middara. If you've been paying attention to the channel, we also just picked up Descent. We're going to be doing some miniatures from that. We're going to be finishing Chronicles of Drunagar, maybe a little bit of Cursed City. We got a lot going on, so don't miss it out. So without further ado, let's go. Obviously, the first thing we're going to do is scrape off all those nasty mold lines with a craft knife, file, or that little crappy Citadel tool that I still use to get those mold lines off. If you make sure you check out the description below for the full paint list and for supplies that I use. If you're interested in what I use, full disclosure, I do take a small percentage of what you purchase off those links, which is borderline robbery through Amazon, but it does help support this channel because it does take a lot of time. Once you are primed, we're doing a black undercoat and a white spray from above. We're going to be doing our skin tone first, which is Cadian Fleshtone. Now, I like to follow the card art as much as possible. And I'm not going to lie, I totally messed this up. I wasn't paying attention to her hands, and I painted them in flesh color all the way around to include her hands. But if you're looking at the card art, she has green gloves on. My fault, my mistake. So yeah, that's what we ended up doing. So we're doing everything in Cadian Fleshtone. Make sure you're thinning your paints. Don't put on it straight out of the pot. We're thinning our paints using a wet palette, and we are making sure that when we put on a second layer, if we choose to do so, which you should, that the first layer is completely dry. Make sure that those legs are nice and smooth when you're painting them, and obviously don't forget the backside because Nightingale's butt is hanging out very badly. For Nightingale's tank top, we're going to be using some Deathguard Green. And also from Nightingale's tail. Now, my gaming group is currently playing Middara, and I am learning more about the game every time we play, and every time we do play, I love it even more due to the lore, the story, the voice actors that they hired from the app. Like, fantastic. They did a great job. If you have not played this game, I suggest getting it. It is fantastic. For the tentacle-like things coming down from her arm, not arm, neck, there we go. Like she's a Twi'lek from Star Wars. We're gonna be using some Warp Lightning Contrast from Citadel. And make sure we're doing this on the hair as well, since Nightingale has some bright green looking hair, which I think looks actually very good. For our horns, we're going to be using some Shyish Purple, which is another contrast paint from Citadel. For the little metal pieces on the back of our sword, and for the top portion of, I don't know what the hell they are, little mechanical things by her horns, we're going to first cover them in Grey Knight's Steel. We're then going to put our purple highlights in our hair with some Magos Purple, which again is a contrast paint, and I like to switch between contrast, regular paint. Again, this isn't a professional painting. This is just getting it good enough to get on the table to look good, make the game that much better, because painted miniatures make the game so much better. Once we have those silver bits on top painted, we're going to go over with some Plaguebearer Flesh contrast paint just to give it that nice green look to match the card art. Then while that Magos purple is still drying, we're going to wet blend that a little bit with some black Templar for the hair. And you're going to see those white portions poking out through that black Templar, and that's exactly what we want. You can see the contrast where we don't need to do a whole hell of a lot, and it just makes it pop out through. For our sword, we're going to be doing some Rhinox Hide. And if you forgot to get the little pieces, we're going to use some Leadbelcher or Granite Steel, whatever you want to use on that. For the end of the sword, we're going to use Retributor Armour. For the straps going around our sheath of our wicked sword, we're going to use some Deathguard Forest. The skirt of Nightingale, I am trying to make a focal point. So we're going to use some Thousand Suns blue, and we're going to work on this to draw the eyes to this portion of our miniature with attention coupled with the face. Obviously we're going to get to that point, but this is one of our main things we're going to focus on. For the little belt, we're going to use, again, black Templar straight out of the pot onto it just to give it that nice black, dark looking belt color. For our leggings or socks, whatever they are, with the garter belt attachment, we're going to use some Sotek Green, which is a bluish green, and I don't use it often enough, but it is a very lovely color. I really enjoy it. Now, that's me nerding out on some colors. For our shoes, we're just going to use some Basilicanum gray. This is probably my favorite way to do shoes, especially if you've done some zenithal highlighting, because it automatically highlights them coming through the zenithal highlighting. Makes it easy. You don't have to do a whole hell of a lot. To start our wash process, we're going to start with Aethermatic Blue, which is another contrast paint that you can use as a wash, and it's going to give it that nice greenish blue color. Fantastic. Obviously, for our skin, we're going to use some Reikland Fleshshade for the entirety of our skin. Don't get too crazy with it. Don't dunk it in. Just a nice coat of Reikland Fleshshade. And for our sword portion, we're going to use some Agrax Earthshade. The rest of it we are not going to touch. I don't want too much wash on there. We're going to make it kind of look a little mundane in certain areas. Once these washes are all dry, we are going to start with our highlights, and the first thing we're going to do is our skin highlight with Cadian Fleshtone. It's obviously going to be a reapplication, so we want to go over basically our entire miniature with this Cadian Fleshtone. When we are doing the face, we are concentrating on the bridge of the nose, the forehead, the cheeks, and the chin. That's where we're going to draw our light sources and build those up over time with multiple layers of this very thin paint. While you're doing this, and if you want to take a break, head over to our Instagram, nerd.nights. I say we, but it's just me. I mean, I guess my wife somewhat supports me, so I guess, whatever. And check out, we're always posting on new stuff. You can see new things that are coming out before they do come out if you're that much of a nerd knight like I am. So when you're doing all this, make sure you're doing a couple coats and getting all of the skin areas before we build it up even further. We are then going to take a 50-50 mix of Cadian Fleshtone and Kislev Flesh, and we're going to be building it up even further, concentrating again on the face and those ears, bridge of the nose, forehead, cheeks, and a little tiny bit on the chin. And when you're doing skin, less is more in this instance. It doesn't take much to overdo the skin tones. You want to do very thin coats and just barely put it on, concentrating on things that would hit the light. Tops of the hands, the knuckles, and the bridge of the nose, all of those things that are going to catch light. And for our skin final highlight, we're going to use some Kislev Flesh. We're going to use this very sparingly. So some top on the knuckles, some of our fingers, a little bit onto our legs, and obviously we're going to concentrate more on that bridge of the nose, the ears, the forehead, and the cheeks. Now, the most critical part of painting this miniature, we are going to work on the eyes. Now, she has very big eyes in the picture. We're going to make them as big as possible without not making them look overly big and stupid. Get your white paint, whatever you have, and put little daubs inside those eye socket areas, the orbital, and we're going to use that as our base before we put on our green. Once we are satisfied with the little white spot that we have, we're going to use Warpstone Glow for the center of our eyeball. Or I should say the eyeball color, or the iris, I guess you would say. Anyways, put that in there. Be very careful. I'm using a size 10-0 brush. I'm not trying to blow it all up in there. I'm trying to put little dots, and if I need to put a little bit more, I do. Once you are satisfied with your green area inside the eye, I'm going to take a little bit of Abaddon Black and put just a little tiny pupil in there. With the hardest part done, we're going to start working on the rest of the miniature, and we're going to take some of that Warpstone Glow we just used, and we're going to hit some of those raised areas on the twilight portion of her, whatever the hell it is coming down from her head. Just hit the top areas, get a little bit on the inside, don't overdo it, but we're going to do one more layer of this with a different color. Once that Warpstone Glow is dry, we're going to take some Moot Green, and we're just going to put little bits on top. Just less is more again on this instance, and just hitting some of those raised areas, which makes it look like the sun is hitting it, and that part is just a little bit brighter green. If you want to take it one step further after you put the Moot Green on, mix a little bit of white into that Moot Green and go over it even a smaller surface area than you just put the Moot Green on if you want to. It's optional, you don't need to do it. To highlight up her horns just a little bit, we're going to take some of that Naggaroth Night from Citadel, and we're just going to hit the raised areas going up. We don't want to make them overly powerful, just a little purplish black. For the portions of hair, we're going to do a 50-50 mix of that Naggaroth Night and Emperor's Children, and we're going to hit the raised purple and pinkish areas in her hair. We're just going to brighten those up just a little bit, just to add a little bit more flavor to it. And for a final highlight on that hair, we're going to do a very thin coat of Emperor's Children. We don't want to overdo this because it doesn't really match the card art that much. We just want to put a little bit of brightness in it just to give her that nice little pinkish look. For our shirt and the metal portion on top of her hair, I guess it's her hair tie, I still don't know what it is. We're going to be taking some Nurgling Green. We want to hit the breast area and on the abdomen. And don't forget the back on this because I did forget it initially. For the metal bits on top, we're just hitting the top portion of this area. We're just going to kind of create a little bit of tone variance between the greens. And that's all we're kind of doing with that. We're not trying to overdo it on this. For the metal rings, there's a couple that are around her arm and one that is sticking below her shirt. Hit that with some Balthasar Gold. Her metal belt buckle, we're going to use some Runefang Steel just to lighten that up just a little bit. Now to start on the focal point of this miniature, we're going to take our original color, which is Thousand Suns Blue, and we are going to hit the raised areas along the entire portion of our skirt. Now obviously we're using thin paint, so we're going to do 2 layers, maybe 3 layers of this to start building up our color. Let it dry, then put another one on. Do not do anything in the recesses. Once you're satisfied with the original Thousand Suns Blue, add a little bit of white in there. Again, less is more, and we are going to build up our color variation with about 2 to 3 more coats of this. When you're doing this, only hit the middle raised areas and you're going to start seeing a buildup of color. For the next set, add a little bit more white and do the same thing, this time covering less surface area than with the last color we just did. And you're going to see that skirt really pop out and really look nice, and it's going to draw your eyes to the skirt, which it did to me, I guess. To highlight up our gold area, we're going to use some Liberator Gold real quick. For our little strap pieces on our sheath, blade sheath, we're going to use some Loren Forest. For the top portion and the top portion only and a little bit on the tail, we're going with some Straken Green to give it that tone variation between the top and bottom. For our base, we're going to put some Sterling mud on. This is going to take about 30 to 45 minutes to dry depending on where you live. And once it is completely dry, we're going to hit that with a dry brush of Terminatus Stone. Again, less is more in this. We just want some coloration. And finally, we're going to do our rim of our base in black like we've done with all the rest of the main characters. And that wraps up the original main character 4. So on to some monsters and baddies. But not looking too bad. Nothing crazy, and you did. I'm proud of you. Very proud of you. I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for all my subscribers who do watch these videos, who interact with me on YouTube. If you are not, hit that subscribe button. That way you can vote on what you want to see painted on a weekly basis, and you have a say on what happens and what you want to see. Because I like pleasing, obviously, the people who watch this. So thank you again for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, that thumbs up, that like, hit that bell button. And I'll see you on the next one. All right, paint on.